Alright, so in this video we're going to continue where we left off in the last video. So in this video I'm going to show more of the double wishbone suspension, since last video we only talked about the radial and vertical conversion. Alright, so before I get started with the suspension, I still need to clear up something from the last video. In the last video I said I didn't really know how, or I didn't figure out how to properly make the mathematical function for the vertical to rotation. I finally figured it out. The formula I've used is minus asin and then a variable divided by 3.5. The minus is there because otherwise it was reversed, as you see here. And the asin is to convert it to radial, and then the variable, which is the height of the cube, divided by the length of the beam. So now, as you can see, the beam always stays in line with the cube. Like, you can also see that with this little dotted line. So this actually is way more accurate than all of the other methods I used. The one issue with it is when I take away the limit that I put on there, is if it goes over its max point, it goes back to 0, and now it doesn't matter what I do, it never fixes itself except if I do Ctrl Z or refresh it. I refresh it by just taking away a character and then placing it back, and now it fixes itself until I go further again. So make sure you limit it like just under the length of the beam, and then you still have enough freedom for it. That's basically how it works. Like, later on in this tutorial I will show you this double wishbone suspension that I made a start of in the last video. But the reason why I'm not using this version for the vertical to rotational is because I already made the suspension system earlier, before I even knew how to properly do this. So as the first step, we're gonna make this part where you convert vertical movement to rotational movement. So first off, I'll make sure that the origin of both of the beams are in the middle. I already prepared these models for this. So I just set the origin to the 3D cursor. That just rotates over there. Same for this one. Just make sure it's in the middle. Set origin. So now both of these, if this is on individual origins, it'll move like this. Parent these beams to there. Okay, so that's an easy step. So now from vertical to rotational, I'll first make sure the origin or the 3D cursor is here. Place an empty there, and same for this one. Place an empty there, and parent this to the empty. Same for this one. Parent it to the empty. So now both of them work. Make sure both of them are also parented to this. So if I want to move it, like if the car is rotated in any way, I can just rotate it just with one thing. So now how to convert it to vertical. So I'll just first, I'll first put the 3D cursor here, put the empty there, place a track to constraint, so it also always follows or always tries to point at it. This is sometimes an issue that happens, which can't easily be fixed, sadly. But like, a way to do that or to fix that is just go into edit mode, make sure the 3D cursor is on its origin, then just experiment with how much degrees it is. I already thought it was around 30. So in this case, do the same, minus 30. So now this moves rotationally instead of vertically. So I'll put it more in the middle, so the rotation is a bit faster, so it's a bit more accurate. Like if I put it here, it's not really as accurate anymore. And now I can just put the copy rotation to this empty, and then I'll have to do this, do the same here, minus 30, same for this one, minus 30. And now both of them move, but you have to turn on target Z. I'll show you why. Because if you rotate this, on the y-axis, it's now tracking it like on the global. But what you want is to always track it. So put this on target Z and look at. Wait, if I just also parent this to that, it works perfectly. So without target Z, just stays on the horizontal axis. So just always make sure that's on. Okay, so there's the first step. So for step 2, we'll have the part where the wheel connects to, which will always stay straight. So the wheel stays straight, that's why double wishbone has 2 wishbones. And we make the suspension that always stretches to the beams. So for this step, we're gonna make the part that's in between here. It's gonna connect to the wheel later on, and also the suspension that's gonna be here. So what you wanna do first is to give the ability to put constraints in the middle there. Make sure you have an empty on both sides. Make sure they are parented to these bars. So now, of course, they will follow it. So now put a cube or whatever you want to put here. Make sure it's a mesh and not empty, because with a mesh you can make it longer and make anything, but you still have control over the origin. So that's really important. Parent it to the empty. And then take the track 2 constraint. Put it onto this empty. And also nice thing, because it's not empty but a mesh. You can just edit, go into edit mode and edit rotation. So it's still visually how you would want it to be. And now it's still always straight, like how you want it to be. So now for the suspension, it's pretty similar. In this case, I'll just take this empty and just so I don't have to add a new one in. Now I'll place this empty, add in a circle. So here I'm also gonna show you how to actually make suspension, or at least visual suspension. Scale this down, and like I'm going to use the screw modifier for this. Like how the screw modifier works is it rotates around the origin. So make sure the circle is always outside of the origin, and then it'll work. Make sure it's rotated the right direction, then turn up the screw value, and then iterations turn it up. So just however you want, really depends on what on preference. Then take the stretch 2 constraint, and since you already have empty here, we can just reuse that. Put the target to this one. I always like to keep the volume variation on 0, because if it's not, then it will also stretch in the X and Y, but you only want it to be in the local Z direction. So just turn this off. Check if this matters, but it doesn't fix it. So then what you could do is just rotate this. So actually just in here Y, and then you can rotate a circle. And now it's going to here. You could also put a model on this side and this side, of course, for the ends of it, but for the sake of the tutorial I'm not gonna show that. And now the suspension compresses perfectly how you would want it to do. And also, because this is basically, we're gonna use it as an empty, just put it on wired, find it here in the outliner, just turn off rendered. So now it's just the same as an empty, but you have control over the origin and such. So that's step 2. So in this step, we set up the possibility to steer. So in this case, you can steer the part where the wheel will be on, and the bar will move with it. So now for step 3. In the last step I forgot to put this on target C, so make sure you enable target C for that. Okay, now you're gonna add in the part of the steering. So I'll make another cube empty, and just for visuals I'll just bevel this and put the beam here, which later on will be replaced with an object, so you can at least see that it can steer. And I'll scale it on the Z-axis so you still see the other one. Parent it to this one, so it also has, always tracks this. But now you have the ability to steer this. So now if you put in the middle of these two empties, you grab an empty, put it here, then to the back you put another empty, and you parent this to that so it always moves like that. You put it wherever you think you would want the steering beam to be. And then what you can do is like place this where you want the steering beam to connect with the car. Then make another empty beam. Make it as long as you want. And same for all of these. Make them wired. Turn off the renderer view. Same for this wire. And see. Turn that off. And now you can parent this to the empty. And now to track 2 constraint. And again, target C. Parent this to this, so if you rotate everything moves with it. So this one as well. So now if you rotate it anyway, it should still work. So now if you rotate this, beam goes with it, so you basically have a reversed mechanism, since normally you would push this and it would rotate, but then it doesn't work like real life. So now you have the steering setup, you have the suspension setup. Always make sure to test everything on the way, like if it's rotated, if it would still work. In this step I'm going to show how to control the height that the track 2 constraint glitches out. So as you can see here, it glitches out, and we set up something where we can tweak that it doesn't glitch out as easily, or at least not in the way you want it to be. And this definitely depends on your model entirely and on what you want the max and min to be, so don't directly copy what I do, but you can look at the steps that I do it to use it yourself. So now for this step, we're gonna make sure that the steering, because it's a track 2 constraint, and this issue doesn't happen where it goes over the limit. Because with a track 2 constraint, if something is perfectly straight but just rotates a tiny bit like you see happen here, it shifts its rotation. So then, like, I'm gonna show you a way to fix that. Like if you look at this, so you make sure, like if I put it on that, it can go higher without it shifting. And if I put this that way, it does the opposite. So it will stay like this until lower. So you'll have to play with this. Like you can put it in the position you want to be max. This seems like a normal position for a car, for it to be max. Then move this on the y-axis and until it looks like it shifts to the right side. So that's perfect. So what you can do now is take this inside, move it along its origin to be straight again to the top, and because it's parented to this, this rotation is still normal. Then you can, instead of using that empty for the suspension, you add an empty on top of this, and you make it track this empty instead. Then parent this to that. And now, unless you go above that, everything is working again. So then later on, when you make the controllers, you just limit the height to this so it doesn't go over there. And now everything still works. And of course, now that this isn't the controller anymore, you can tweak this and everything. So for this part, I'm going to add in the models that I already created, parent them to the right objects, and also create the axle which is working here. Alright, so I have these models that I created before. So now to make the rotation part and put the right models on every part, first I'll start with these. And make sure this is perfectly in the right place, rotate it right. So slightly that way, something like this. Make sure this is in line with that, where you want it to be. Somewhat like that. This can still be changed with the empty. Then I'll put the 3D cursor here. Set origin to 3D cursor. Geometry to origin. And move this back normal. And then, oh wait, not key transform. That, and rotate it how it is there, so make sure that's perfectly on there. You can rotate it. That seems right, almost. It doesn't have to be exact. And now it should follow it right. Yes, it does. Now I'm gonna parent this to this part. So that's working correctly. If I rotate this, oh, not on, just here, working correctly, perfect. Make sure this is parented to this. This will then be the part controlling all of this. And then we have this beam. Okay, so for this part, I'm going to set up the controllers. So here's the steering controller, and the controller in here is just this arrow for the height, which we will also animate using the shrink wrap to create this effect for it rolling. Yes, it looks like it's glitching or stuttering, but that's just because of the resolution of the ground and the wheel together. So for the rotational controller, I'm first gonna make sure the 3D cursor is in the middle, so I'm just gonna select these circles, put the 3D cursor in the middle. With any object, I like circles since it's gonna be rotational, so this makes more sense. Later on gonna make this more obvious that it's steering, but for now it's just gonna be this. Copy rotation. Wait, I shouldn't do that one, but the actual controller, because otherwise this wouldn't be affected. So copy rotation to this, and now it's gonna replace, since this is on replace, it's gonna replace this rotation. So this doesn't matter anymore, it always stays like that, but that's not what we want, of course. So I'm putting it after original, so it's gonna add onto it. So now if I rotate this, that works, but now of course since that doesn't work, everything or like this gets messed up. As you can see this. First I'm gonna make sure this is there, so it'll rotate, but now this is on global, so I'll put both of them on local. So now that doesn't have any issues, but now as you can see this is having issues because this is parented to this, but it's also following the rotation of this, so that's causing issues. So now if I'll try to put this on local space, see, that fixes it, and it does, but does it fix it? Yes. Now is the issue that this isn't fully straight, apparently. As you can see, that's not straight, so I'll put the cursor there, this one cursor, rotate it as closely to 90 degree. Same here, since I'm not sure if this is exactly right. Looks to be right, yes. So now, oh wait, put that back. It's not quite right. So now I'm gonna check Z. That looks right. This also. Let me try local. Okay, so I have to make sure this is like straight with this. So like that. And now, as you can see, it's pretty close to being perfect. You can still tweak this a bit, but to me it's good enough in this case. As you can see, this works, and on every rotation it's working, as you can see, so that's good. So now what I would do is put a limit rotation on it, and you want to use the local, like put this on local, the z-axis, and as you can see its local is the z-axis, so turn these on, keep them on 0. So I can currently only use the Z. I'm not snapping it to Z now, only the Z I can rotate. Now I put this, and this you have to decide what will be the max angle. Usually I go with something like 30, so the minimum should be -30 and the maximum 30. So now I can only move it like this, which is good. And just to make sure nothing weird happens, I'm just gonna limit the location of it as well. And it should still have all of these values, because like it doesn't actually make sure it can't go further. It keeps going up, but it just can't go further than this. But it can still move, but it doesn't show it moving. So the values are still there, so I can just copy them and place them in. Copy, place, place. Okay, so now if you see, it can't move and it can only rotate on the z-axis until 30 degrees. So that's the first one done. So now I'm just gonna make a simple model for it. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to make sense for it to look like it could be something what you want it to be. So I'm just gonna scale it in that way, like this. Yes, gonna put this on normal. See, this isn't meant to be good, it just has to make some sense. Now put something here, something here, and scale both of them up. Oh, select that, scale that up, move them out a little, like so. I'll put this back there. And now you have some simple arrows. But the issue is, if you put this to wire, like make an empty out of it, we have these lines and it will be annoying. So instead of like immediately extruding and then scaling, I made sure there's a gap between this, because then if I just select everything, X, limit the dissolve, now it can take away all of those lines. So now it's just one object like this. So this is pretty obvious that it should be steering. Then we have the vertical still that we need to do. So what I like to do is just an up arrow. And again, you can do anything, but I just like these symbols for it, because they really show what it's supposed to be. And like, what I didn't show you is the way it would mess up with the limited dissolve, so I'm gonna show that now. So I basically extrude, but do I right click, then go up and then do this. But then if I put it on wire again, take the render away, doesn't work, because now these are overlapping and that's causing issues. So if you just move this slightly up and dissolve, now it works. And now I can simply parent this to there. Just parent this to there so it always moves with it. So now I can control this pretty easily. And everything works. But now I'm gonna limit everything on this. So limit rotation first. Like, the limit rotation doesn't matter. Like, if I try this, okay, this is the angle that it changed. So I'm just gonna put that back on 9. And now I can't rotate it anymore. Then a limit location. Just gonna do the same as last time. A Z, just Ctrl V, Ctrl V, Y, Ctrl V, Ctrl V, X, Ctrl V, and Ctrl V. So if I'm looking, it's local, and the up I have to check. Okay, that's the Y. So if I try that, in this case that's not working. Wait, I have to put it on local space. Same for this one. Okay, so it still keeps the Z. Okay. So now I'll go to its minimum. Like the minimum we clarified with where it glitches out. Something like this. Yes. So then I'll keep the minimum at this. I'll round this up if that's possible. Yeah. And then I can make it go up as far as I want. Like, what do you think a car would have its max? I feel like around this would definitely be the max. So then I'm just gonna take this here. And now I can only move it up and down in this way. Rotate like that. And everything is still intact. So there you basically have it. So if you have the simple ground for it to react on, then you can basically put this, put a shrink wrap on it. So the shrink wrap into this. So now this basically controls it all. Make sure this is on top. Then near surface points, that'll work. And now it will basically react to its ground and work in that way. So as you can see, the suspension moves with it. I'll put everything above the x-axis, because it's trying to stay on that axis and still limited to that place. You can see, so it doesn't go lower. But if I go here, X doesn't go to where it would normally go, but now it catches on, as you can see. And this still all works. And of course you're gonna replace this with a wheel. And now you could put a driver on this. Like if you check, okay, this one is the one you want for the wheel to rotate. Add a driver, 1 times var. The one depends on the size of the wheel, but that's something you'll have to experiment with. And you can also put a minus in front of it to reverse it. Sometimes it reverses the way it should go. And then you put the object to, so it will have to react to the movement of this. So usually you would choose the object of the car body, but in this case I don't have that. So I'm going with the controller. So I just have to find the name of the controller, which is cube.009. So here, edit driver 009, which you can see here. And then the axis, if you want it to move on the x-axis. So x location and then local space. So even if the car is turning, it would still react to that. So now the wheel would react on all of that. So if I would like put a basic cylinder on this, X like this, then parent this to this, and now you can see the roll over it. Like it's now kind of acting weird, but that's because I didn't put this straight. See, it does rotate and it does get affected on it. In this case, I can just take this and upper it, so this is its default point. So it does get affected by the by the ground. So now even if you rotate it, and then local, what's x-axis, still gets fully affected by it's on the ground. Also rolls over it. In this case, as you can see, this rotates way too fast for this. So what I could do is, and like it's going too fast, so I'll do 0.2, I think. Something like that. Like that's something you have to tweak. You can also calculate that, but I feel like it's perfectly doable just with the eye. Now you can see it's vibrating, but that's because the ground is doesn't have high smoothness. So that's it for this video. See ya!